What's going on? My name is Hannibal, the Beat Animal, 1/3 of Earth's Mightiest production trio, Team MFN. New Orleans is like, okay, I'm working on a song and I need a bass player. So it's like, well, how do you find a bass player? You literally open your window and says, hey, who play bass? And then somebody comes down the street with a bass guitar and then they'll play on your record. And that's New Orleans. It's like everybody does music. New Orleans is one of those cities where it's cooler for you to be in the band than it is for you to be on the football team. You're somebody. You know what I'm saying? You're a part of something. So it's like New Orleans is a music city. I think if you live in New Orleans, there's two things you are. You're either gonna be a musician or certified chef, just hands down. You either could cook or you play music. Or like me, you do both. When I was in high school, so in New Orleans, you had Cash Money, you had No Limit, and they were like, their music dominated our radio. It was always either bounce music, Cash Money, No Limit, and that was all you heard on the radio 100% of the time, all the time. One of the artists that I still work with to this day, X-Man the Professor, he's 1/3 of the Bastards, Earth's newest anti-hero, so be looking out for them. X-Man the Professor put me on Wu-Tang Clan. Like, he was one of them guys that was always against the norm. He was listening to Cannabis and Big Pun and Darkman X, you know what I'm saying, before anybody was listening to that shit. And he would always put me on this new hip-hop stuff that I never heard, this New York, this East Coast stuff. And then he gave me Wu-Tang Forever, right? And I remember listening to the CD and I heard Triumph from Wu-Tang, and it fucked me up. Like, it was just literally like, I remember thinking at the time, it was the greatest record I had ever heard in my life. Like, I remember Inspector Deck comes on there. It changed my life. It ruined my existence. And after that, I was on everything Wu-Tang. It was all about the Purple Tape. It was all about Iron Man. It was all about Brooklyn Zoo, 36 Chambers, Return to 36 Chambers. It was just Supreme Clientele. That was it. And then after that, that was it. That changed my life. That moment right there. It was like, I think I was like a junior, senior in high school. Not to just reveal my age. Not that it matters. I'm wearing a fucking mask, so nobody knows how old I am. It's like when I would listen to like Cannabis, and then I would listen to Mobb Deep, and that was it, man. Like, Big Pun, that shit was like, holy shit, man. These guys are like really spit. And it was just like, at the time, New Orleans was either on some like, some make 'em say rap, or it was on some wobble-dee rap. So it was just like, and then it was Wu-Tang Clan, and I was like, holy shit, man. So that was it. And me and my production partner met. It was like the first day of college. We were in we were in a remedial math class, right? At the first day of college, because we both didn't do so good on the ACT. The professor didn't show up. And the class, everybody's just sitting there. Nobody knows if the professor isn't there. You can just leave. So everybody stays in class, and I'm sitting there, and he's sitting there, and I was wearing a Wu-Tang t-shirt, and I think he was drawing a Wu-Tang logo on his notebook. I was like, you fuck with the Klan? He's like, yeah, you fuck with the Klan. And we just been friends ever since. Like, because New Orleans is the home of Cash Money and No Limit, we had a chance to work with, like, all of those artists are around. And like, just to kind of give people an impression, in New Orleans, it was like, if you needed to get in contact with anybody, any of the rappers from No Limit to Cash Money, they were just around. New Orleans is a really small city. You know what I'm saying? So everybody kind of knows everybody. It's not 6 degrees of separation. It's like 2 degrees of separation. Like, you need to get in contact with Lil Wayne, you call this person, there's Wayne. That's it. Like, our production partner, Johnny Brasco, went to high school with Lil Wayne and Currency, and like Lil Wayne's manager, Cortez. They all went to the same high school. Everybody was kind of around, and it was just, it just seemed like there was just no big deal. Like, oh, okay, there's so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? And then you would look at like, oh, this is a guy that I know, and now he's on tour with DMX. You know what I'm saying? It was just, that shit was just happening. It wasn't a big deal. We would shopping our production around to different people, and people were interested, but they weren't quite biting the way that we wanted them to bite. And what we did was we decided to do, how we got to the remix tape isn't important. We did a remix tape where we took acapellas from industry artists like Jay-Z and Eminem and DMX and Jadakiss and Busta Rhymes. We use a lot of Jadakiss, by the way. We use a ton of Jadakiss shit. And what we would do is we would like splice up these different acapellas, you know, from different songs. And then what we would do is we would take like a local New Orleans rapper, like X-Man the Professor or Trademark the Skydiver, you know, who's now part of Currency's Jet Life crew. We would mix those verses in with the verses of the famous people. We would produce the beat, and then we would do like a 20-song project of just that. And the year that we did that mixtape, it's called Dangerous Games. And when we did Dangerous Games, the Super Bowl was in New Orleans that year. The BCS National Championship was in that year, and Mardi Gras had all happened in like a 2 or 3 week radius. So there were like millions of people in New Orleans, and then they were coming, you know, they're looking for new music. At the time, I was working at a music store, so I would just have this shit playing over the big speakers all the time. And I would pay the other people that worked there, like, yo, here's $5, play my record. And then they would play it. People come in, oh, what's that? Oh, it's Dangerous Games. We're selling it at the register, you know, under the table. We were selling for $12 a pop. We sold thousands of these CDs. And that was how we got our name out there. You know, and then people would like hit the remixes and be like, oh, who is this? And then in the beginning, people would just hit us up to do remixes. Like they would never be like, oh, we want you to produce a record for us. They would always want us to remix a record that they had done. And then in time, you know, we built relationships with all of the various labels and stuff like that. And then we did stuff for Cash Money artists, No Limit artists. And then, you know, then, like I said, New Orleans is small. So after that, everybody knew who we were. My dad was a musician, and at a certain point in his career, I guess his career kind of stalled out. You know what I'm saying? While Ellis Marsalis' career just continued to catapult, my dad's career stalled out. So when I started showing interest in doing music, my family was like, they were afraid that I was going to invest all this time and energy and money like my dad did and then never become what I was supposed to become. Like they looked at it like it was a giant risk. You know what I'm saying? And so they didn't want me to do it. My grandmother loved me so much that she was like, yeah, I hate that you want to be a musician. I think it's a dead-end, go-nowhere job, and I don't think you should do it. But if it's important to you, baby, then I'll help. and then that was it. And my grandmother bought us our first keyboard. It was a Roland XP60. Ace was working at the financial aid office at UNO. I was working at Warehouse Music. Johnny Brasco was working at Times-Picayune, the newspaper. And literally every 2 weeks when we would get paid, we would all give my grandmother like his $50, his $75, and we was just incrementally trying to get it paid off. And it was so laughably bad how little we were giving her for this $2,300 keyboard that she was like, all right, guys, just keep going to school and don't worry about the rest. My production team was very lucky in the beginning. And we were talented, but we were lucky, and we didn't realize how lucky we were in the beginning. So it was like we had been doing music, like the first month that we had been doing music, we got a chance to perform for A&R at Quest Records, which is Quincy Jones's record label. Like the first year we were in an R&B group, which if you can believe this beautiful face, once upon a time, I used to sing, and myself, Ace One, and 2 other guys, we were in a group, and like we opened up for 112 and Jennifer Lopez at the House of Blues, and everything was just real easy. Like to do some records for Cash Money artists, do some records with No Limit artists, everything was easy. And then one day, I almost feel like I remember exactly when it happened. It was like 2001, 2002. Shit stopped being easy, and everything was difficult after that. And I remember when it first got difficult, I didn't really think about it, and then it was like some years went by, and it never got easy again. And then we realized then in the beginning, we were just lucky to have those opportunities. Now we had to really just grind and work for every opportunity after that. And then after that, it becomes a matter of show and prove. Like, why should I work with you? You know, what's in it for me to get tracks from you when I could go get tracks from this person or that person? So the biggest obstacle we've had to overcome was just trying to break into those circles, you know what I'm saying? And then I remember before we came out to Atlanta, you know, we had talked with various producers, you know, Cash Money producers, No Limit producers, and they told us that, yeah, y'all should go to Atlanta because Atlanta's a big music hub, and because we're so good at so many different things, because we did hip hop, pop, rock, jazz, country, etc., that we should just come out to Atlanta. And we didn't know that Atlanta was so cliquey before we got here. This is who we deal with. And if you're not a part of this, we're really not trying to give any new people an opportunity. So we had to like grind to like break down a lot of those barriers and doors to get people to give us a chance. And I feel like now we're in a position where we can walk into those rooms now. Like I remember the first time we went to Grand Hustle, and I want to make sure I tell this story, motherfucker. So first time we go to Grand Hustle, I'm just saying, I'm not hating, I'm just telling. First time we went to Grand Hustle, it was like 2006, I think. We got here in 2005. We came to Atlanta after Hurricane Katrina. And the chick that worked there, and I don't remember her name, was like, okay, in order to submit beats, you have to pay us $50 for every 30 seconds of music on your CD. So if you had, 5 minutes of music, then you're paying like hundreds of dollars for them to listen to your beats. And I was like, really? And I was like, it seemed retarded that I have to pay somebody money to listen to my music. And then years later, once we established ourselves in the Atlanta music scene, we could just walk into Grand Hustle and just give them a CD, and it's no big deal. We learned that we had to earn the right to be able to do certain things, and breaking down those barriers, I think, has been the biggest business obstacle that we've had. I'm kind of up and down about it, but I kind of like working with younger artists because they keep you fresh, because they're always into something new and something different, and it kind of forces us out of our comfort zone. And I sort of like producing from that angle of not being in my comfort zone. Like if you always work with this type of artist, then your sound can get dated or it can get played out. And it's just like, so we always working with new people. It kind of forces you to always do some new stuff, come up with new processes and stuff like that. Yeah, we listen to a lot of music and we work with a lot of artists, rappers, singers, other producers, musicians, doesn't matter. Any genre, any walk of life, it doesn't matter. We just like to work with as many people as possible. And that's what keeps us fresh. The 2009-2010 season, the Saints went to the Super Bowl, won the Super Bowl. Who that? And we produced like the Saints Super Bowl theme song. I did the Red Bull Big Tune, which is like the big Red Bull producer battle. And it came down to me and then this other producer named Frank Dukes from Toronto. And the crowd decided that I won that night, but someone in the Red Bull organization decided that Frank Dukes won that night. And that was supposed to be the moment that really just took our careers to that next level, because I had been beat battling. That's the whole reason that's the whole reason that I am Hannibal, that I wear the mask now, because we got into beat battles, and that was how we broke our name in the Atlanta music scene, by doing beat battles. And then once we started doing beat battles, it opened up a lot of doors for us, and then it became Hannibal, wear the mask. Red Bull was like, at the time, they was like, oh, well, we sorry that this happened. How about we make amends by giving you an opportunity? So they pitched an idea for us doing a song. It was Scott Lofker from Red Bull, and I give much respect and much love to Scott Lofker. But Scott Lofker came up with this idea for us to produce a song for the Saints. Within like a day, the video had been watched like 50,000 times, and then within like 2 weeks, I think the video had been watched like 250,000 times. All of these radio stations started playing the song, and I remember there was a moment after the Saints won the NFC Championship game. Garrett Hartley kicks the field goal, in overtime. It's like, oh, the Saints are going to the Super Bowl. Ace Wonder, Johnny Brasco in one part of New Orleans. I'm actually at Johnny Brasco's house in another part of New Orleans, and we're like, oh, let's go celebrate. We're going to the French Quarter. So we're all heading to the French Quarter. And while I'm in the car, Ace calls me, and he's like, yo, put it on the radio. They're playing our song, right? So I turn on the radio, and they're playing our song. I was like, holy shit, dude. They're playing our song on the radio. It's awesome. I was like, dude, how'd you get them to play our shit on Q93? He's like, I'm not listening to Q93. I'm listening to B97. So I switch over to B97, and then there was a moment in that stretch where every radio station was all playing our song at the same time. And I can remember I always call it the summer of Ja Rule. Right? I remember the summer of Ja Rule, where every time you turn on the Rule, I'm a baby, and it's on every station. And it's like, we would always complain about how much you hate when that happens, except when it happens to you and it's your record. Then it's totally different. It was like, oh, it's so awesome. Like every station was playing the song, and it was phenomenal. Like I was so happy, I wanted to cry. I was like, it was amazing. And everywhere we went, they were just playing the song, and it was like we were in the West Bank. We were headed to the city, and the traffic is a standstill because everybody's trying to get downtown, everybody's trying to get to the French Quarter, and all these cars are stopped, and you hear like hundreds of cars blasting our song. You know what I'm saying? And keep in mind, at this time, the song wasn't available on iTunes. So they were literally all just getting it from the internet, just however they could get it. And it was like all these radio stations was playing it, and it was just like, you know, so we ended up getting the song on iTunes. We sold like 50,000 copies. It got played on like 40-something radio stations. The NFL.com did a list of the 10 best sports anthems of all time, and our song is on that list. Like, and it was surreal. They started using it in commercials and TV shows and like, and what the best thing about that was everything about the success of that record was completely organic. Like, you know, Red Bull assisted us here and there, but everything that we did from going to the radio stations and shooting the video and everything, we did it all ourselves. And at that point it was like, and it was one of those things where a lot of times we would do records and people would be like, oh, the mix isn't good enough, or you need to go get it mastered here. And it was like, we recorded the shit in my house, we mixed it at the house, like I mixed it, Ace mastered it, you know what I'm saying? We wrote the hook. We had performers like we had two of the bastards. We had a live action, The Girl, and X-Man the Professor. We had Big Shot the Black Rhino, and Big Wreck was on the song. You know, we produced it, me and Ace wrote the hook, and we recorded it, we produced it, recorded everything in the house, and it was on the radio, and everybody loved it, and nobody complained about the mix or the mastering or anything. All of that shit that the industry tries to tell you, oh, you gotta record at this studio, or you gotta have, none of that shit matters. None of that shit matters. We did that shit in the house, and it was like 50,000 copies later, we was just, there it is. Heart of the city, that's my moment right there. When the dust settles and the smoke clears, I want to go down in history as the greatest producer of all time. That's what I want. I want to be the Michael Jordan of producers. I want to be like, when people look at Team MFN, I want them to be like, those guys were the greatest. Like, it's like we produced the most hits. We produced more hits, more classic albums, more critically acclaimed music. I want people to go back and just when they look at the wealth of our catalog, they'd be like, man, I can't believe those guys produced all of this stuff. I always use this same reference. Kobe Bryant wants to be better than Jordan. That's his goal in life. I want to be better than Michael Jordan. Will he ever be better than Jordan? Probably not. But look at what he accomplished just by trying. You know what I'm saying? Look at the championships. Look at everything that he's accomplished in his career. Everything he's accomplished is like because he's trying to be better than the best. So we want to try to produce more hits than Lennon and McCartney, than Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, than the Elvis and the Colonel. You know what I'm saying? Then the corporation at Motown. You know what I'm saying? Then Pharrell, Timbaland, Dr. Dre. Will we ever accomplish that goal? I don't know, but I hope that in the process of trying to be the best, we can accomplish some really great stuff.